Grant Quenstedt, Quenstedt Law Firm here in Schertz, Texas. Thanks again for joining me.
Sure thing, Matt. Thanks for coming out to the office today and setting up all the equipment. I appreciate you being here and looking forward to our podcast today.
Yeah, and I should have said thanks for hosting. So it's a good office.
Of course.
So last time we spoke a little bit about what happens when people get into an accident, commercial automobile accidents. We talked about kind of the myths of how crash reports are used from local law enforcement responding to the scene. I wanted to open up and ask, what do you have in terms of crazy stories from your line of work and dealing with clients coming in with all kinds of claims and folks who you've represented over the past few years, decade?
Sure. So probably one of the most extreme examples that I have from a case that happened about 10 years ago. This case came to me, was referred by a friend. They sent these clients over and they said, hey, these people are really injured and they really need your help. And so I talked to the clients and we went ahead and got them signed up, and I thought to myself, this should be a really straightforward case. The clients are badly injured. One of them, ended up with multiple fractures, spent several nights in the hospital, and then went home in a wheelchair after the wreck. And the liability side of it seemed really clear. The way that the clients described the wreck, they were traveling westbound on a highway where they did not have any stop sign, any traffic control device at all. They're just driving along, and all of a sudden a car on a cross street runs a stop sign and impacts them at a 90-degree angle. And so I'm thinking this should be an open and shut case. Bad injuries, good liability. I should be able to send a demand letter, and this case should resolve. Well, a few days into the case, I get a phone call from the insurance adjuster, and they say, oh, Mr. Quenstedt, I'm going to send you the crash report. Okay, well, that's a bad sign, because usually it's me that's sending them the crash report. But if they're sending me the crash report, that's like, oh, okay, what's going on here? So we get the crash report, and it has the entire accident scenario rotated 90 degrees. And so now the crash report shows my clients on the cross street running the stop sign and impacting the other vehicle, which they show going eastbound. So this is how it happened. This is how the crash report shows that it happened. And so we get this crash report now that's completely wrong and places my clients completely at fault for the wreck. And so immediately I brought in an accident reconstructionist. We started the whole process of investigating this and trying to figure out where this went wrong and trying to figure out how do we prove that this is wrong. And so the accident reconstructionist comes in, visits the site immediately, takes photographs, takes measurements of gouges in the road, of tire tracks, of debris field, so on and so forth, photographs all the vehicles involved, takes measurements of all of that. And then we request all of the body cam video. And so this was a major wreck. Multiple officers, sheriff's deputies, as well as DPS trooper responded to this wreck. And we sit down and we start watching all of the body cam video. And one of the key people in the video is a sheriff's deputy who was kind of leading the way out there, and we see him all over the scene, and in one part of the video, some younger males are approaching the scene, and he says, whoa, who are you? Why are you here? Well, that was my girlfriend, or that is my girlfriend that's in one of the vehicles. Okay, where was she coming from? Well, she was coming from over here. Okay, so I assume she was going this way. And in that one split second, the entire outcome of the investigation was determined. The officers on the scene hadn't spoken with my clients. They hadn't spoken with the other driver. They literally just talked to some people who walked up on the scene, said where the general location of where this other driver was coming from, and they determined the entire outcome based on that. And even though the sheriff's deputies that were there, they weren't technically qualified to do accident reconstruction, so they called in a DPS trooper. Well, the DPS trooper shows up and is like, did anybody kind of say what had happened here? Well, all I got was that she was coming this way. And so the incorrect information just got repeated, and that officer that showed up relied on the incorrect information. And so we end up with this crash report that's completely wrong, and that incriminates my clients. And so, we ended up litigating that case and brought in the expert witness and did our own investigation. And it was an uphill battle, but we were able to prove that the crash report was wrong and that my clients did not cause the wreck. And so we ended up obtaining every dollar that was available for them in that case. But it was definitely a fight. I think it definitely has shaped the way that I view crash reports and the way that I approach these cases, and in a good way. It's caused me to be a lot more critical and not take crash reports as truth. They're tools to use. That's about it for me.
And you had said last time that that's mainly used as kind of an administrivia starting point in your own kind of investigation when reconstructing things.
Exactly, yeah, right. The crash report gives us information. It gives us kind of a jumping off point with some basic information, but that's really about the limitations of it in my opinion.
Right on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that client, that you had 10 years ago in that crazy backwards case, felt after the fact that, there was an element of fairness, now that you fixed it for her.
Sure, yeah. I mean, those clients were so grateful to have had me represent them and to have had me, figure out what happened and actually be able to prove what happened in their case. Because I do feel like many attorneys would have looked at that crash report and said, hey, you caused the wreck, I can't help you. And, thankfully I believed what they told me. And I do have a technical background. I have an engineering degree. And so I was able to also look at that crash report and say, from an engineering perspective, from a physics perspective, this doesn't make sense. Let's figure out what really happened here.
Which is interesting, because you see a lot of attorneys who have degrees in things that have nothing to do with physics and more so American history or whatever the case is. So you've been able to leverage some of your previous background in education to what you do now and for your clients.
For sure. I think a lot of attorneys end up in law school, after going and getting a poli-sci degree or a history degree or an English degree, which is good, in a lot of aspects, but really in the personal injury field and in dealing with motor vehicle accidents, having that technical background has proven to be very helpful to me in a lot of situations. I can look at stuff and I can, have a better understanding of whether this makes sense from an engineering, from a physical perspective. And then we often end up hiring engineers as expert witnesses. And so being able to talk with an expert witness and being able to speak their language is very helpful.
Right on.
Yeah.
Talk to me about fairness.
So life is not fair, right? And that's something that we should have all been taught, I think, as children, but for a lot of people, they apparently weren't taught that, because I get a lot of people in my office, whining about things not being fair. And, it's not fair that this other person caused the wreck and now my insurance has to pay out money. Well, thankfully you have some insurance, right? Thankfully you have the personal injury protection. Thankfully you have the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. and you have that coverage available to help you, right? Because out of all of the different types of insurance, all of the things listed on your insurance policy, there's really only two things that are there to help you: the personal injury protection and the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage is there for your benefit. All of the liability coverage that you carry, that's to pay for somebody else's damages if you cause a wreck. And so it's not there to help you. But if you have those coverages on your policy that you've been paying for, now is the time to use them. And this idea that it's not fair is really not a valid point, right? Because you have this insurance coverage, it's there to help you. If you're injured, now is the time to use it.
And would you say, people should tap into their own insurance versus just always thinking, the other person if they're not the at fault?
Right. There are a lot of situations where we do utilize the client's own insurance in a case. And so, say for example, you get in a wreck and it's not immediately clear how the wreck occurred. Well, the other person's insurance, they're not going to, if they're not convinced of how the wreck occurred, they're still investigating what happened. They're not going to set you up with a rental car. They're not going to move your vehicle out of the tow yard. Your vehicle's going to sit there wrecked, and it's going to incur storage fees every day. They're not going to pay to fix your vehicle. They're not going to total out your vehicle. They're not going to do anything to help you until they're 100% convinced that it's their responsibility, right? And so that process can take days to weeks, in which case you really need to use your own insurance to go ahead and start the process of getting your vehicle repaired or totaled out or whatever the case may be. It's also really helpful if you have rental car coverage on your insurance. And so if you have enough money to go rent a car, or if you have an extra car sitting in your driveway, that's great. But a lot of my clients don't have more than one vehicle, and they don't have money sitting around to go rent a car. And so when their car is damaged, it really is a major inconvenience to a lot of people. And so having that rental car coverage on your policy and using it when you need it is very highly recommended.
Yeah. You've had clients who have voiced in the past that, they've received an offer from, say, insurance or the other insurance, and they've felt insulted.
Right. Clients, some of my clients, they like to be very insulted. They're not taking my case seriously. They're not offering anything close to what is a fair amount. This is insulting. How dare they, treat me like this? What you really have to understand, and when you understand that the other person's insurance company, and for the most part your own insurance company, they don't care about you. They don't care how badly injured you are. They don't care what you've been through. They don't care, that this is causing you anxiety and this is causing you to miss, your payments on your house and miss your car payments and causing you to go into a spiral. They really don't care. All that the insurance companies care about is negotiating a release for their insured. That's really all they're there to do, is to protect their own insured, pay as little money as they possibly can pay to get that release, and to close out your case and move on to the next one. And so, I really try to stress to my clients, you cannot be offended by an insurance company. They don't care enough to offend you, right? They're playing a numbers game. That's really it.
Have you ever had a client, speaking of insurance companies, that has told you that, they approached their insurance company and their insurance company told them to call the other insurance company?
Sure. People call, a lot of times they'll call their insurance agent. They buy insurance from a local agent, and they call their agent and they say, hey, I got in a wreck today. What do I need to do? Well, if it's the other person's fault, call the other person's insurance company. Okay, that's good advice. You definitely want to go ahead and start a claim with the other person's insurance company, or you want to have me start a claim, on your behalf. But if you have those benefits available, that personal injury protection coverage, that rental car coverage, there's definitely possible benefits of using your own insurance, and your insurance company is going to try to dissuade that, try to convince you, hey, don't make a claim with us, because if you don't make a claim with them, they don't have to pay out any money.
Yeah.
And they're trying to keep that money in their pocket and not let you use the coverage that you've paid for.
Are there any other horror stories from clients who've come in the door where you've been able to, for them at least, probably a life-changing outcome, or something otherwise that has prevented a negative life-changing outcome?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we try to meet people where they're at. We try to do a really good job of listening to them and supporting them when they're in these crisis situations, because that is what this is to a lot of people. They don't know, when they're going to be able to go back to work. They don't know how they're going to get their bills paid. They don't know how to get the appropriate treatment to try to get better. And so we're there to guide them through all of these obstacles and through all of these unknowns, because this is what we do. This is what we do on a daily basis. We're here in this office figuring out solutions to people's problems every day, and we see the same things over and over and over again. And so we recognize the patterns. We know how to help in situations, and we know how to get things done. And so that's really what we're here for. And I've had clients tell me over and over again that after they come in and they meet with me and I've listened to their concerns and I've addressed each one of their concerns, they're like, okay, I feel my stress is kind of melting away. I feel I'm starting to be able to breathe normally again. I'm starting to feel like this is going to be okay. And so that's really, I think, very fulfilling and something that makes the stress of this job worth it in many situations, is that I am able to help people and help them through a stressful time in their life.
Right on. What's been the most, I guess, beneficial for you, or what's been your biggest takeaway in being involved in this industry and working with your clients?
That's a good question. And what I really like about this business, what I really find rewarding, is that I'm able to help people, and I'm able to earn a living and provide a workplace for Stephanie, who's my one employee. I'm able to provide a job for her and an income for her through the process that we help people with. And so people can walk in the door. They don't need any money to hire me. We work off of a percentage of whatever we're able to collect. So you don't pay anything up front. You don't need any money to hire me. And that I find really rewarding, is that someone can come in, they're stressed out, they're hurting, they're in a bad situation, and I'm able to do my job. Stephanie's able to do her job, and between us, we're able to help this person. We're able to earn a living through that process of helping them. And then at the end of the day, they've gotten the medical treatment that they need, they've gotten the help that they need, and they leave with money in their pocket. And so I tend to have really happy clients. We really pride ourselves on our communication, being available to our clients to answer their questions and to respond to their text messages and their emails very quickly, and make sure that they're always updated about what's happening with their case, and to really advocate for them in every way that we can. And so I do find that really rewarding, and being able to help people in that manner.
Grant Quenstedt, the Quenstedt Law Firm. Where can people find you?
So we have a great website with a contact form on it that you can fill out, and that goes straight to our email. But the website is grantqlaw.com, so and then the letter Q as in Quebec, and then law.com. In addition to that, we are on Facebook as well as YouTube. And then you're always welcome to give us a call, 210-888-9953. And that phone number is answered 24/7. We answer it if we're here in the office. If it's outside of business hours, we do have a 24/7 answering service that takes those calls. And you can now also text us to the same number. The 210-888-9953 is fully text capable, and we're here to answer your messages.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.